bloke. I said, me and some friends have just been talking about you. He said, you disgust me. I said, yes,
Look at the other side and just see how it looks.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, okay, could you imagine, like, if we sort of got there, you know, it, like, had this amazing earth moving, you know, changing conversation.
And yeah, it was all
and it had been sort of recording, like, either yours or my crotch.
Kind of would take away a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, certainly if it was mine, it would.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Going.
Excellent.
Fuck yeah. It's all like a bit of an experiment, this, you know, like, I think kind of why I thought it would be cool, like, is because when I went and did the one with my mum, on the way over, like, we actually probably had almost, you know, I wouldn't say like a better conversation, but it was like really, you know, interesting, like, and in depth. So I thought, well, actually, why not do this?
Yeah, a friend of mine's a minister, or used to be a minister, and
Yeah.
he had like conversations in, like, he was on the radio, sometimes on panels on the radio,
Yeah.
and it was quite a regular thing at one stage. But I remember said he was they were in the green room once, like with the other panelists, and they actually had a far better conversation in the green room.
Yeah.
Far more interesting, would be much better to listen to.
Yeah.
And after that, they all agreed not to, like, arrive early. They'd all get there like straight away, so they could literally, and then, like, if they wanted to just chat, to do it afterwards. So they kind of stopped coming early.
Yeah, because that's my whole kind of like thing with this, really, is yeah, like, it's like not wanting just to have kind of talking points or sort of pre-arranged things, you know, because every interview that I've ever done, like, as far as, I don't know, bands or like music, you know, like, you're trying to talk about something or you're trying to like promote something.
Yeah.
And it's just nice, I think, just, you know, for like two or three or whatever people, like, just to have a conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, you know, for anybody watching this, you had to kind of point out all of my traffic violations. I bet you there'll be someone that'll be like, you shouldn't have undertaken that, or something.
Probably.
I mean, I won't undertake. I'll tell you what I did notice, from watching the one with my mum.
Right.
Is I say the phrase, you know, so much. It was so interesting watching it back. I was like, fucking hell, I say this so much.
It's really funny because with the comedy, I like write phrases like that in sometimes. Yeah. Like, there are places where I write in, you know, in order to kind of like add to the building and the rhythm of like a joke.
Yeah.
And so, like,
so either I'm a genius, I don't have to write them in. Or...
yeah. So, like, it's like very intentional. I don't know if I do it. I know I say like too much, and that's something I really...
It's quite a Hampshire thing, they reckon, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think saying like... I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know like if we've spoken about this, but like, I do have a stammer. And I had it since I was a kid. And it's one of those things where I think over time I've just learned, it's almost kind of hitting the ground running. Sometimes if you stop talking, like, you're more inclined to have a blockage. So saying things like, you know, or like, or it's almost kind of like warming yourself up. You know, you sort of catch yourself by surprise. I know that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, it keeps the flow going, doesn't it? Yeah.
And yes, when I watched it back, it was almost like every single sentence had it about 3 times. So yeah, I'm going to really try not to. So if there's loads of pauses, maybe you could fill it in with a couple of you knows.
You know.
Yeah.
Alright, I'll keep that in mind.
Because it's fascinating, though, to watch yourself, and you might find this afterwards. Like, I think it's something that everybody, like, should do, because you know, you do actually, like, see yourself, and I think kind of how we often don't, do we? Like, it's like a subjective experience, you know, when we're living it.
Yeah.
We don't actually, like, see ourselves, and it's just fascinating, to watch just things you say and things you do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like video record a lot of my comedy to watch back.
Right, yeah.
And but even when I don't do that, like 99% of the time, I have like I audio record it on my phone.
Yeah.
and like put it like to the side of the stage, but just so I can just listen to it back, even if it's just once,
Yeah.
to kind of think, this was good, this didn't work so well.
Do you ever listen to it and think, shit?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think I write stuff that I like, and just sometimes other people don't. So sometimes I write something that doesn't work.
Music.
Yeah.
Yeah, because actually what's really interesting is I think there's loads of different forms of like art and artist, you know, and like entertainer. And I was having a conversation, I can't remember who it was now, it was a friend of mine that was also doing comedy, and he was saying that the audience decides for him what's funny. So he'll sort of try a few things a couple of times, you know.
Yeah.
If it doesn't get a laugh, he'll just throw it away.
Yeah.
And I've had other friends though that actually thrive on that kind of conflict almost, you know, where they kind of keep it going if they think it's good.
I know one night, I can't remember what the material I was doing was, but it was something that was rather strange. And a friend of mine who was sort of at the back of the room, he saw that it didn't take.
Yeah.
It was a very long-winded, kind of surreal, repetitive joke.
Yeah.
And he said that he saw the look that crossed my face when I realised it wasn't working. But he saw that was a look of like sheer enjoyment. And it was like that I was kind of like, I enjoyed the fact that it wasn't really going well. It made it funnier for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so kind of you're in that like latter camp. I think Grant's in there as well. When I've watched Grant,
oh definitely. Yeah.
I think Grant really almost thrives on a room that doesn't quite like get him. Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe, you know, you have that similar thing. I mean, I kind of do and I don't. When I do the so far things, yeah, so I do the MCing in them, right? You know, so I sort of introduce. Sorry, I just said you know. I introduce stuff.
I didn't notice.
In this kind of irreverent fashion.
Yeah.
And there's some I've done it at where like it really works and people really find it funny. And I've done it. I think there was one gig. It was weirdly Grant was at as well. And it was such like a po-faced audience, it just didn't work. And I was kind of thinking, oh fuck, you know, this is really bad. And I'm kind of not one of those people like that thrives on the you know, on that. I kind of like it, you know, when everyone's laughing, because it feels like it's sort of a community thing, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
But then Grant went and he did his set, and the same thing happened. And as weird as it sounds, I was almost relieved because I was like, okay, well, you know, if it's happening to him, you know, this is sort of what he does. So. Yeah.
I think like it varies. I mean, I've got this video of myself that I kind of am using a lot. I'm sending to people to try and get gigs, and it's of a show in Beijing. It was like we did a British comedy night, and I was the first act on. So there was like the host, and then it was me, and there were like microphone problems. So I've kind of like abandoned the microphone. I'm just sort of shouting. But everything I said was getting like a laugh.
Yeah.
To the extent that I was having to like stop because I had to like keep stopping to let the audience laugh, and it was stuff that I completely wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And sometimes like
that's
the audience,
nice though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. Sometimes you get those nights, like those times where everything hits
just clicks. Yeah.
Even like those little kind of throwaway half jokes that you just put in, and no one normally laughs at, but they're just like in between. And we're getting like a hit, and it was like, whoa, this is insane. This is crazy.
Yeah. That's the drug, though, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
You know, when you have those sort of reactions. Yeah. I mean, it sort of makes me think of when I was doing classes. You know, when I was teaching kids. Okay. And actually, why I don't do like classes anymore, I think, is because you know the kid that sort of stands up and sort of like challenges you.
Yeah.
Okay? I was kind of on their side. So when they were sort of challenging me, you know, it was almost like I was like, yeah, you know, like take him down, shit. Actually, it's me. No, don't take me down. And you know, so every now and again, kind of one of our other kids would stand up, and I'd sort of try to kind of engage with them, you know, with like what I thought was a really kind of funny sort of, you know, I don't know, well thought out joke. And then one of our other kids would just go for like bum or something like, and all the other kids would just kind of roll around laughing. So once I realised that, you know, like it did make it a bit easier. Like, and then you just, you know, you'd say bum. Actually, I wouldn't say bum, but you know, just sort of something.
Yeah,
you know, not thought out. I do remember, like, I don't know if I've told you this story, but one of the kids once, like, he was someone who I had for, for private, like, one-on-one drum lessons, okay? And he was saying to me, he said, how come you're much stricter in the classes, Mr. Vorner, than you are in the one-on-one drum lessons? And I kind of went off on one for about like 10 minutes about, how I noticed that I had to be, and I really like cared about them, and I kind of wanted them to get the most out of the lessons, and I realised if I wasn't strict, they wouldn't. And then like this kid just sort of like stood up at the end of it, right, and he put his hand on his heart and he went, "Great speech, sir, really got me." And he played it so well, that that to this day, like, I don't know if he was being sarcastic or not. Like, I still don't know. I just hope he was, because it was just brilliant. Yeah, so that's almost when I made the decision, like, I couldn't really like do that job anymore because I was sort of on their side.
Yeah, I remember when I was at uni, we talked a lot about like this idea that you're either an agent of social change or you're an agent of social control.
Yeah.
Like, as someone who works with children.
Yeah.
Like, you are either you're either an agent for social change or an agent for social control.
I mean, that's a great way of looking at it.
And there's kind of like this idea that there's like the revolutionary spirit amongst young people.
Yeah.
And that actually, like, what society does so much is try to quash that.
Yeah.
Kind of like we talk about like teenage rebellion as if it's a bad thing. And actually, like, maybe actually society is supposed to be renewed every 15 to 20 years, which is why every generation goes through this stage. And
yeah, man, totally.
we saw like the social change that happened in sort of the 60s and 70s as a result of like teenage rebellion.
Yeah.
And as a result, we had like changing music, changing kind of values towards like sex and family, but also like women's place in society shifted as a result of that kind of like teenage rebellion movement.
Yeah.
And I think actually, like, society is always trying to quash
that
teenage rebellion. And actually, what we need to do is embrace it and be like, okay, teenagers, right? How are we going to make society better?
Yeah, man, totally.
Over to
sort
you.
of like channel it, but because that's why I think I found it hard. Is I was almost told to sort of quash that. Well, not really. I didn't ever have someone saying to me, right, you have to quash that. But that's the feeling you get, that as a teacher working in a school, when it's classes especially, like, I think it's different. I mean, why I like doing the small groups is because you can be more yourself and you can sort of like tackle some of that stuff. And I have to say, from a teacher's point of view, it is really draining. So it's a dichotomy, I suppose, because it's really draining to kind of constantly be sort of taking them on and going, okay, well, I take that point, but at the same time, you still have to do your times tables. Okay, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's so much pressure on teachers. Sorry, there's such like a list of things they've got to achieve all the time in terms of curriculum and targets and stuff.
all that stuff with like SATs. I mean, I don't know any teachers that think that this kind of testing is a good thing.
No.
It's universally hated.
Yeah.
So sort of like Christ knows where that's all coming from. But I mean, when I worked with teenagers especially, I mean, there was one time when I was working in a group of, I think it was like year 11s, and it was a particularly challenging class, but actually like it was one of my favourite classes, and I really liked them, and I still see some of these guys out and about now, and the teacher, and there was loads of friction, and they just did not gel. Okay?
Yeah.
And it was almost like every single lesson, I used to sit there thinking, just pick your battles with them.
Yeah.
Like that. They're not going to respond to this. And we were doing like Romeo and Juliet as well, and they sort of liked kind of the story of it, but just sort of didn't kind of engage, with like doing the work. And it was almost, I wouldn't say kind of above them, but I mean, if you're already kind of like struggling with more kind of basic communication, like it's then hard, to articulate sort of, I know kind of metaphors and similes and stuff. But anyway, somehow kind of we managed to rub along. But there was one day when it was like towards the end, and they had to complete, it was like 4 or 5 pieces of coursework, or else they wouldn't be entered like for their exam.
Right.
And there was a handful of them that just hadn't finished their work. So I just took them down to the English office, right? I opened up kind of the cabinet, like I made them all like tea and coffee, opened up the biscuits and I said, right, you know, it's ridiculous if you don't finish this yet. So we've got like 2 hours in here. I'll make you drinks when you're finished. You know, let's just try and finish these. And then, you know, you've done sort of the best that you can do, like at this point, for your GCSEs. And I'm sure, like, if my boss, you know, had kind of like known about that, you know, like I'd have been, I don't know, like told off or fired or
which
like
is
something.
which is insane, because there's a raw honesty about that, and I think that's sometimes it. And like when I was working in a pupil referral unit in Devon a few years ago, and like, these are kids who'd been like excluded from school, and we were trying to get them through like courses, or we were trying to like reintegrate them to school or whatever.
Yeah.
But actually, like, I think for a lot of them it was, you know, the system that we had in place, it wasn't working. They weren't interested in going back to school. They didn't care.
Yeah.
And it was only when you were like kind of brutally honest with them, and you turn around like, actually, you know, if you want to finish this course, if you want to complete this English course, then you need, for example, you need to do this piece of work, and we need to get this done, like, so that you can finish this.
Yeah.
Like, it was that kind of like raw honesty of the situation that they like responded really well to.
Yeah.
Instead of doing this like merry dance about the whole thing.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It was like turning around and going, actually, we really want you to get, and the time and effort we channeled into going, well, let's get this thing done now.
Yeah. Let's
Like,
get this party started.
Yeah.
Did it work?
Most of the time, I think there was, I mean, in terms of like getting work done, I think when it came down to like, we are going to sit down and we're going to get this work done, like however long it takes, because this is important.
Yeah.
I think there was sort of an honesty in the situation that the young people appreciated, and they realised that not just that it was important, but that we disrupted the routine, we'd broken the norm. Like, that's how important it was. And I think for them, school was so much about routine, and like you do it for the sake of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like, you do it because you have to.
Don't you also feel as well that there's this weird... I mean, I remember watching, I think it was like a Louis Theroux documentary, and he was talking about this sort of like cat and mouse thing that with the police and the gangs, and how it's been going on for like 50 years, and it just never changed, and it almost felt like a game that just kept on being played.
Yeah.
And I do feel that kind of a little bit with schools, and that's why, you know, we're saying about that whole thing about kind of like picking your battles and stuff, right? Because, you know, it almost feels like it's sort of like kids' job to rebel, it's like teachers' job to sort of like tell them not to.
Yeah.
And this whole thing kind of like goes on. And actually all you've got to do is just slightly disrupt that, and it's almost like everyone kind of looks up and goes, hey, what?
Yeah.
Then you have their attention, like, and it seems weird to me that more people don't like do that.
It's like there's this idea of like a psychological contract, and like that you. So, like, for example, when a kid's in school, or like an adult in prison, say, you know, they do certain things. They go to a certain place at a certain time because they have to.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to. You have to do this and you have to do that. And then there's kind of like the contract where you do things in exchange for. So you go to work in exchange for money, or you go to the job centre in exchange for your benefits. And like it's like that. There's a sort of a balance, or a perceived balance.
Yeah.
You do this work, you get this pay. And then there's this kind of idea of voluntary participation. That's something you do because, like, you want to, and yeah, you might get paid, and you might get a benefit back towards you of some kind.
Yeah.
But actually, your motivation more comes from the facts that you want to, and that's like the healthiest place to be.
Yeah.
It's not I'm doing this work because if I don't, I'll get in trouble. It's not, I'm doing this work because I have to, or I'm not doing this work because I'm getting paid. I'm doing this work because, like, principally I want to. Principally because in this very, very moment, getting this done, I'd rather do that than not.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting like kids to that place, and that is hard.
Yeah, it is hard. And also, I think what's weird about it is sometimes it's not the kids that you think are going to be the challenge. Like, sometimes maybe kids from like from a worse background, or maybe got, you know, really shit kind of life things going on.
Yeah.
Often are quite thankful of school, and they're often quite thankful of kind of wouldn't say rules, but some form of like structure. And it's like Joe's often saying this, like, with kids especially, where they almost kind of crave that kind of structure, and it's a bit like animals, where they will kind of push and push until they know where the line is. And actually, like a lot of these kids don't ever have that line, and it's really good for them kind of to learn, you know, kind of what's acceptable, like, and what isn't.
Yeah.
Some of the hardest kids, I think, kind of to reach are the ones that I mean, I'm kind of struggling to find the right word here because I don't like using kind of class, but maybe more sort of like middle class, where they've kind of got kind of a lot of stuff, but they think, oh, well, I don't need to bother with this. And it's quite hard to engage those kids. You know, so I don't mean it as a class thing, but just people with that kind of mindset, where maybe like families, you know, have kind of got like a lot of stuff anyway.
Yeah.
They don't really have to try, and they're not kind of like told off. Like, in my experience, like those are the hardest kids to get on side, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's almost a bit like, okay, well, why should I bother? You know, I don't need to do all of this. And what's really sad is they find out that they do need to bother, but just later on in life.
Yeah, and they do. I think like they sort of say that like education is wasted on the young, and like the sort of absurdity of an education system where you start educating people in sort of one format or another at such a young age when they're not motivated.
Yeah,
is
because I didn't get it when I was a kid. You know, I mean, because I think I'm a slow learner, maybe, right? But I mean, I'm only really starting to like really value learning about stuff. I mean, I've really started kind of finding a passion for things like science, which I didn't ever think I would, and just kind of finding out about you know, what's going on like in the universe. And I mean, not to the point of, you know, I mean, like I know I'm not going to be like a master of it, but just sort of trying to find out more, like an inquiring mind.
Yeah.
And I think if all of us like did that, and we all, you know, we all realised we weren't fully formed and we're always moving forward, like I think that we'd have a much like healthier populace. But a lot of people are like, okay, well, you know, from what, say like 5 until 18, 21, if you go out to uni, sort of those are your learning years. Then you're formed, and then you just kind of go out, you know, and kind of, I don't know, like do your job. And actually it's mental. Like I think I've probably learned more about stuff in the last like 10 years yet, because I've been more kind of susceptible to it.
I would definitely agree with that. I mean, I've always been really interested in philosophy, and like psychology as well. Like I got sent on an NLP course, like neuro-linguistic programming. Like this idea that like the way we speak affects the way we think, or kind of like the way people speak to us affects the way we think. And what do you mean? No, sorry. I went on this like course, like a one-day course, and then like I've done
his face the wrong way.
I've done a lot of reading since then, and on the subject, and kind of like how, you know, like how our language like changes our ability to build rapport or like communicate ideas, and the fact that like when you tell someone something, you can be convinced you're explaining yourself in such a crystal clear way, but for them it's your words are meaningless.
I find that loads
actually, that building of bridges.
With students sometimes, there's been a few times when I've said something, and I'm much better at it now, but like I used to kind of explain stuff, and there was this one kid that after about like 10 minutes, he asked me to help him out with a bit of homework he had here, so it wasn't even a music thing. And when I finished, like he kind of looked at me and was like, don't understand any of that. I was like, okay. And I can almost, I can like see the look now, you know, when they've got that kind of like glazed over look, and I'm like, okay, I'm not making any sense now, am I?
Yeah, I mean, my fiance Liz, she struggles a little bit with like maths related stuff sometimes, but like, and I will like try to explain something to her, and it doesn't work, and it frustrates her. And it frustrates me that she hasn't understood, and so we both end up like frustrated, and actually we both have to
fight it.
Well, no, not quite. but I have to have the
mass, you fucker.
I have to have the courage to stop and say, and like think and go, okay, I'm not explaining this well enough,
Yeah.
I'm not doing this in the right way, and have to stop and think and then like find another way of kind of like showing her this idea.
Yeah.
And she's she's a much more visual thinker than I am.
Yeah. Because you've got the three, like main ways of learning, isn't it? It's visual, auditory, and Kinesthetic, yeah. And I think really that most people learn best by like doing. Most learning is an active thing, I think. But then we often need either sort of visual stimulus or auditory stimulus to help us know kind of what it is we have to do.
Yeah.
And I think each person often is kind of really different with different things. Like if you say we're learning music, there's some people that don't really have a good ear. They have to learn it from a page, but then maybe like if they were learning something else, would learn it better, like for auditory
Definitely,
skills.
it changes, and I think that's the danger as well with that kind of approach.
I'm more auditory with my porn consumption.
The danger with that approach is that you then say, oh, this person is a visual learner.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you neglect the other two, and that's really damaging.
Yeah.
One thing as well is I was like sort of in the NLP thing, is sort of like the expressions we use. So someone who is in that moment of thinking visually will say things like, look at it this way. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Picture this.
Yeah.
Whereas someone who's like in that moment thinking in an auditory way will say, oh, listen to this. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you? They'll use kind of
really
auditory.
Yeah.
And then someone who's kinesthetic will do like more kinesthetic phrases.
Yeah.
Like
sign language.
Yeah, and as well, like even to the extent people like will use more like gastro kind of and olfactory kind of.
Yeah.
We kind of ignore that, but someone might sort of.
I'm gonna have to look out for that actually. Yeah.
It's really and what you can do is when you're like a student or someone you're talking to is using visual phrases. If you use visual phrases too, like subconsciously, that that they pick up on that.
Yeah.
And then it actually helps with the building of rapport and the building of the relationship. And so like when they're using auditory phrases, you use auditory phrases. And so you kind of like mirror each other's thinking.
Like you don't try and fight them down.
Yeah.
So you're auditory, I'm visual.
Yeah.
Look at it from my point of view.
But
listen to what I'm saying. No, look at it.
But as an educator, you want to and it's quite an incredible. It's quite an incredible
I've never
thing.
really thought about that yet, but actually, I can really imagine that happens a lot. Yeah.
I used
wonder what I say. I mean, again, like what I was saying at the beginning, with recording yourself, like I think it would be really beneficial. I mean, obviously, like I don't record myself teaching, because there's sort of like child protection and stuff. But I mean, maybe some of my private students might just ask like if they wouldn't mind if I just sort of recorded a few snippets just to see if kind of what my approach is.
Yeah, but just like you just keep. Listen to the students, and if they're speaking in a certain way, just try it. And also, I've noticed as well, like their body language sometimes changes as well. Like someone who's like a little bit closed off, when they're using these expressions, and you start to use those expressions, their body language might become a bit more open.
Yeah.
As their kind of like state of mind changes.
Yeah.
Towards you.
Yeah. Because I've always kind of liked those little things people add to sentences anyway. Like I love when they say stuff like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're wrong.
That usually means don't correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, not necessarily my opinion, but But like, have you thought about it this way? I mean, that's a classic sort of passive aggressive one in a way, isn't it?
I think, I think it's quite easy for those expressions to come across as quite passive aggressive.
Yeah, because I guess really like it's just shit we say, isn't it? Like it doesn't actually have to mean that you're trying to kind of, I don't know, commandeer like a conversation. I mean, I'm sure there are sometimes we do it, but there's so many things again, like that are just part of our like speech patterns. I'll tell you what was really interesting. Was when I was living with a French guy, Cedric, and I can't remember if it was like a hypothetical thing. or if I actually have said it to him, but he was asking like, why we say in English, can you do us a favour? You know, we don't say like, can you help me? And I thought that was really interesting that he was saying that within language and within cultures, like it's really kind of indicative of a lot of things. And actually, I think British people are essentially, you know, it's almost anything sort of, well, we're not like the sole focus of attention. You know, like do us a favour, will you? You know, rather than like, please can you help me?
Yeah, I think please can you help me is a lot more a sort of like humble, like humiliating phrase to say than can you do us a favour. There's definitely a sort of difference.
Yeah, because I mean,
and the power as well. I think as well, like if you're saying can you help me, the person you're asking is the person who's in the powerful position. Yeah. Whereas when you're saying can you do us a favour, I don't know, it feels maybe it's just me, but it feels a little bit more authoritative.
So maybe like it's the opposite, you know? Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I was thinking it was us being kind of like scared to have the emphasis on us, but maybe we want to be in the power thing. And that's what's always kind of like struck me as like weird with Britain's First is, you know, when you ask people kind of what's indicative of Britishness, most people will say things like queuing. You know, so actually sort of like the real kind of harder British people would be like, after you, Britain last. You know what I mean? Like, after you, mate. Which proves that they're not real Brits. Yeah. I'm sorry that I think Joe had British gag once. Do you remember that?
I don't remember it.
It was on Facebook. I think it was on...
Oh, about being British, not Brit, definitely. Yeah.
But it's an amazing one.
I think, I think like, yeah, it's true. It's like, it's weird as well, because there's so much at the moment about, like, national identity is so, like, central to maybe politics at the moment. Yeah. And, like, I mean, even walking down my parents' road, there was someone with a Union Jack flying, and I don't know why. Like, I don't, you know, last time I feel like last time I saw the Union Jack flying outside someone's house was maybe the Olympics.
Yeah.
Or something. And so to see a Union Jack flying now is unusual.
Yeah.
And I think like that kind of sense of national identity. I mean, what are we? We drink tea. We like to queue. There are letters, aren't they? Q, T.
Passive, Passive
C.
aggressive.
I don't know. Yeah, surrounded by C. And it's
tutting.
Tutting.
I like tutting quite a lot, don't we?
I like tutting.
Saying you're welcome. Like, do you ever do that? When you hold the door open for someone.
And then don't say thank you, and you go, you're welcome.
You're welcome. Yeah.
That's the passive aggressive. Maybe we are a very passive aggressive.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a meme like the other day that was how to tell if you're British, and it was you know, one of these kind of like diagrams, sort of like yes, no. And one of the things was, you know, if you have a problem with somebody, like, do you like confront them about it and talk about your feelings? You know, like, and then if the girl said yes, it was like, you are definitely not British.
I saw one that really, really made me laugh. One of my favourite of these kind of like British memes. It's like, how do British people shower? Just like you idiot. We get nice and wet, and then we get the tea bags.
Lather ourselves up. Although I don't drink tea, so yeah, I'm like a failed Brit.
Yeah.
I'm like a real failed Brit. But we went over to Northern Ireland last summer. I was amazed at how many like Union Jacks and British flags there are. And it's so weird, like you just kind of like drive down streets and all of the houses have them out.
Well, I suppose national identity is so central to like the union and separatist kind of.
Because it's weird that, and I guess it's like proof, you know, that everything is like a balance and there's kind of like dichotomies everywhere. Because it is strange that it's almost anathema now to say that you're, I don't know, kind of British or sort of glad to be or proud to be. And I think kind of there is a problem because I'm not particularly like proud to be British. You know, like just, you know, it's a matter of almost some coincidence. I happen to be born here. You know, like it could have been.
Yeah, well.
You know, but I don't think it's a problem if people are kind of happy with being British. And it's weird that, you know, like it always gets associated with kind of you know, sort of fascism or like xenophobia. Like, it doesn't have to be, does it?
No, and like I think actually the moments that have made me most proud to be British have been when they did the refugees welcome, kind of that movement, like when the people were like, oh, there's all these refugee welcome kind of like they weren't really protests, but like marches of support, and then like different organisations were saying, oh, we will hire refugees, we will support refugees, and that was a moment I feel like that's actually really central to Britishness. Because when you think about like in World War II, lots of Jewish children like came to Britain from countries that were under threat of Nazi occupation. And we welcomed the refugees, and it was like, and it's that proud to be British. And Mo Farah, like, you know, he was a refugee. He fled, you know, his family fled Somalia, and he came to Britain.
He obviously got there first.
Obviously, like, they fled pretty quickly. And they've, you know, the way that Britain has embraced and welcomed Mo Farah is, you know, like, it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it makes me proud to be British that we can treasure and honour a man whose name is Mohammed. And I actually think just like Mo Farah's Britishness is a bit of a middle finger to all these kind of racists.
That was the weird thing about like with the ban in America, like, was the fact that he would have been affected by that.
Well, yeah.
And that, you know, I mean, like, just goes to show you just how like short-sighted it was. Even if you were a fan of that, and I'm not saying that I was, but you know, well, just kind of I suppose you were. Like, when you then like take into consideration like who it included, like you must go, oh, actually, yeah, fuck it, that was a little bit of a silly idea we had there. You know,
like there were doctors and you know, all sorts of people who were like then not able to travel and what have you, and it's just a bit of a strange one that.
Because I remember reading about, and this was probably, I don't know, like 10 years ago, and they had those like no-fly lists, and actually, if you had the same name as somebody on the no-fly list, like the system couldn't like differentiate kind of between people with the same name. So there were people that had absolutely nothing to do with terrorism, like that weren't allowed to fly.
Yeah, and when you consider like the prevalence of certain names in like Muslim or Islamic culture, like it's, you know, there's a good chance that you could have the same name as someone in the list.
I mean, I'm just kind of really glad, you know, the ex-England cricket captain Michael Vaughan
wasn't on the list.
Know, it's kind of he sort of whined his neck in a bit, hasn't he? He's not out there causing shit.
Oh god, the trouble that could cause. Although all those text messages you've had, who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
You should send him.
I might try and get him banned somewhere.
But like, it's a very bizarre situation. I mean, like, I find that whole travel ban thing quite weird because, like, in a sense, if you're at war with a country, it does make sense that you would not fly people from that country into your country. But America is not at war with those countries. It is at war with an ideology that certain people in that country adhere to.
And I think it also highlights how weird it is in this modern age that we are at war with anybody, because everything is kind of so connected and with sort of like social media and stuff. I mean, like, it's so weird that we're having kind of war with people that we're almost like so familiar with. Like,
well,
do you know what I mean?
Jihadi John was like a sort of
exactly.
celebrity.
Yeah, he was.
I think he's going to be in the next edition of Celebrity Big Brother.
Yeah, amazing, Day 22, Jihadi John has beheaded someone over the cornflakes. Or something like that, It's my milk! That would, well, you know, I was going to say, like, it'd always be worth watching, but, you know, there'd have to be, like, really awful other celebrities, you know, for...
like Piers Morgan.
Yeah, exactly. Although, okay, can you imagine? I think it would do sort of like more good if they all like got on. You had sort of Jihadi John, you know, and like Piers Morgan. And
I think Jihadi John and Piers Morgan are more alike than people would like to admit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing. Like, if you're on the extremes of anything, like I think if you're either over here or over here, like it's almost like the same mindset and the same ideology. Like, you know, I think there should be like more people in the middle that go, okay, well, I can see, you you know, like a bit of this, a bit of that. You know, I'm essentially over here, but this whole sort of thing of, you know, being either kind of extremely right or extremely left, or
well, yeah, it's like these extreme Muslims. They're like, I use that term because like they're not Muslims really. Like they don't adhere to the teachings of Muhammad. They don't adhere to kind of like Islamic teachings. But
that's one of the things that the Dalai Lama said, wasn't it? He said
they're not. Yeah,
I should stop using Muslim name, right?
But these extremists, you know, they're like, oh, death to the infidel, kind of like you want to see the destruction of Western culture. Yeah. But then you've got these sort of extremists, like right-wing movements, who are like, yeah, like, death to the infidel. We want to see the end of Islamic culture, and it's like that's the same.
Yeah, I know. And actually, I mean, I don't know what your views on him is. Like, he's a really kind of like divisive character. But have you heard of that guy Milo Yiannopoulos?
Yeah, I've kind of caught wind of that a little bit. So don't know a huge amount.
Like, what I find is interesting about him is every now and again he will sort of like make a point that, you know, you sort of start thinking, okay, well, like I can see what he's like trying to do, and he is almost trying to kind of tackle some of the PC culture and trying to make it, you know, so like people can, you know, still have things like free speech, and then he'll just say something completely like batshit or like hugely offensive, and you sort of think to yourself, oh fuck, you know, why did they have to go that far? Like, I mean, he recently, I think he was fired because he said something on a podcast where I think he was either molested or something like when he was 13, and he was trying to say that, you know, like it was okay or something.
Oh, did he say something about like one day it might be acceptable?
Yeah, so yeah, it was something.
The way that like homosexuality was illegal not that long ago.
Yeah.
I've heard people say that similar sort of thing before.
And it's just, you know, I mean, like with a lot of these people, like I say, they'll often, you know, will like shoot themselves in the foot, you know, metaphorically. Or I guess if you're in ISIS, maybe literally. Yeah.
I think the thing is with like this freedom of speech versus political correctness kind of concept, I think is really deeply flawed, because I think like political correctness isn't about limiting speech. Political correctness is about protecting people from the damage that speech can have on them.
Yeah.
And yeah, like sometimes it's clumsy, and sometimes it kind of like this concept of political correctness, it says that, you know, it says, oh, you shouldn't, you know, it gets very restrictive, and people don't like that. But at the same time, like you go on the other end, like freedom of speech. Like, I don't think it's okay for someone to stand up there and spout racism, homophobia, like sexism or whatever. I don't think it's okay.
I mean, I'm sort of weird with that, where
because I feel like they've got the freedom to speak. Like, why don't I have the freedom to shut them, like to shut them up? Like, you can't. I mean, I think your freedom never ever trumps someone else's freedom, ever.
Yeah, but I suppose then our freedom to then take offence might then trump
exactly.
freedom.
It's such a messy.
Yeah, so.
But that's
there's always
not
going to be this sort of contradiction, you know. But I mean, I think I'm of the mind that everything should be open to kind of, you know, to free debate. And I think a lot of people, again, sort of like taking Milo like as an example. I mean, I've actually watched some of his kind of university like campus things, and at the end, he actually throws it open to people that have like a different opinion of him. Like, and he often kind of like gets upset, because often like the people who are at his meetings like are people who agree with him. And I think, you know, he kind of quite likes debating it. And I think really like if we were sort of, you know, because I'm almost of the mind where and I know like it's sort of becoming like an increasingly unpopular viewpoint, but just people can just say whatever they want, you know, and then if you're offended by it, you have a right to kind of like walk away, or you have a right to challenge it, but in a civilised manner. But not be like, you prick, whatever. But
isn't that, I think that's the problem with this whole freedom of speech kind of like mentality.
What if we should turn on a light?
If it won't affect your driving, it's up to you.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I don't.
I imagine it would be really dark.
I kind of feel like freedom of speech is often like it used as a defence. Like, but actually, like, if someone says something and I don't agree with it, like, I think, you know, people use this freedom of speech argument to avoid challenges.
Yeah.
So so if someone says something, they say like something or that I don't agree with, like, yeah, you know, they have the right to speak up, but they can't then use that when people go, oh, I don't think this is appropriate, I don't think you should, like, I don't agree with that. You can't then go, well, I've got the right to say what I would, like, because I think that's the problem, is freedom of speech is constantly being used as like a defence.
Yeah, it's like a carte blanche thing. Okay, well, I can say whatever they want, you know.
But no, but you can say whatever you want, but like, you have to be prepared to enter into a debate.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Somebody...
And often it's used as a way of avoiding debate.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was on Facebook. Somebody like posted a quote, I think, from, I think it was a philosophy teacher, right? And it basically said, something like, you don't have an automatic right just to have an opinion. Your opinion comes with the need to be able to back it up.
Yeah.
You know, which I think is kind of really interesting, and it's, you know, it's so true here, because everybody and on Facebook, like, is, you know, it's sort of exacerbated this. Everyone's like a part-time philosopher now. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
Over everything. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think it's kind of brought with it like a lot of like hubris, you know, where everybody thinks, okay, well, this is my opinion. Like, and you hear people say that, and as you say, like, if you then challenge it, it's like, well, it's my opinion and I'm entitled to it. And like, you have to be open, and you have to be like malleable. And there should be a debate, not just kind of mods and rockers going, fuck you, I like denim, no, I like leather.
Yeah.
You know, which often, you know, like, it's basically, you know, it's that, but just about kind of say right and left.
Yeah, and like challenge each other, and like and like try and change my. And that's the thing, is like, as well, like the problem, like you say, with social media is like, often I feel like social media is like shouting into like a room and just hearing your own voice back.
Yeah.
And actually, like,
and we need those likes as well. You know, that validation.
Yeah.
And there are some people that I think sometimes post like a political opinion because they know that their kind of group is going to like it.
Yeah.
So.
Where it's like
we're disingenuous, maybe.
I feel like we're not as prepared as we are to have spirited, lively, well thought out debate with people who disagree with us.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons. I mean, again, why I kind of wanted to start like doing a podcast thing, and I think, you know, I think eventually it would be really cool to have some people that have totally like different views.
Invite the local skinheads on.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be amazing. You know, and see if I can turn one of them. You know, let's see if we can make out like by the end.
It's like when I used to have the Jehovah's Witnesses knock on my door.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? Like, yeah, I'll have a conversation with you.
I know, exactly.
Like, like, let's have a lively, rational, well thought out debate. Like,
I had a couple of little old ladies that used to sort of like come round to my house all the time, and I just, you know, like, they were so cute. Like, I didn't see them as Jehovah's Witnesses, and I would just invite them in. And any time it sort of got round to kind of, you know, to sort of talking about what's called Watchtower or anything, you know, I would just kind of like steer the conversation away, and I'd make them kind of cups of tea and stuff. And then one day, they kind of brought round like the heavy hitter, because obviously I don't know, kind of the local, you know, sort of main guy, and he sort of came around, like, and any time I sort of tried, you know, like, he was kind of so up for like a debate. So in the end, you know, I wouldn't say like took him on. Because I don't really like debating in a way. And I think kind of what I mean by that is often it's often to do with ego, and it's the most...
Yeah, whoever's got the most ego wins the debate.
Yeah. You know, like, it's not actually kind of about some other points you're making, like, and often it'll almost be, you know, like, who's got the best sort of one-liner or something, you know. I mean, like, I really like watching the Christopher Hitchens ones, you know, but I mean, like, often... it is just sort of two egos battling out, isn't it? You know? And actually, I'd almost rather just sort of have a conversation with people where we could openly talk about it, and it's not me trying to kind of win. So anyway, like, this guy, you know, was definitely, you know, I was like trying to win, and we had kind of like an interesting conversation, like, and in the end, I was still trying to talk, and he wanted to leave. It's amazing, and I was going, yeah, there's one more thing. It was like,
I have this kind of thing with when UKIP are out on the street, for example.
Yeah.
Like if UKIP are out leafleting your high street, I genuinely think someone phone up all your sort of lefty friends.
Yeah.
And be like, let's go down the high street and take one each and have a spirited debate with them each.
Yeah.
See how, because as long as you're talking to them, they're not talking to the people they can sway.
Yeah.
They're not winning votes.
No.
Because they're just wasting their time talking to you. And I genuinely believe that's one way of fighting these kind of people is to UKIP are pamphleting Hive
use
today.
their energy, yeah.
Let's all go down and let's get conversations going with them so that they're not talking to people who might vote for them, who might be persuaded, and give them enough for them to genuinely believe they're getting somewhere with you. Because that's what I did. I bumped into, when I was living in Devon, there was some on the street one day, and I wasn't really doing anything, I had nowhere to be, and I just ended up talking to one of them for about an hour and a half. But whilst he was talking to me, he was completely wasting his time, really, in terms of getting votes. I mean, he spent his whole time talking to me and getting nowhere.
Many, conversions these people get. If it's a small amount, if it's a big amount. Because I'll be honest with you, and I kind of don't want this to sound harsh, okay, but I almost really worry about somebody who could have their mind swayed on the street, because I won't even buy these microphones, for instance, I wouldn't even buy one of them until I read shitload of reviews on them.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that is almost, it's inconsequential, isn't it, right? So I would choose my whole kind of political ideology if someone on the street said, have you ever thought about this? I'm like, yeah.
You know what I have? Yeah. I think the thing is, though, is to be honest with you, and this is going to sound quite harsh.
Yeah. But I think morons.
I think what UKIP and to a lesser extent religious groups as well that do sort of street work. What they're doing is they're preying on the vulnerable. They're looking for the vulnerable people who can, that sense of who are desperate for a sense of inclusion, who are desperate for a sense of identity and belonging. Yeah. And actually, when you see the Mormons, sort of, for example, they're on the street and they are looking for people who they can persuade.
Yeah, exactly.
They are looking
Have
for
you got
vulnerable
self-respect?
people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll see you later. Sorry.
Yeah, it's
sorry to bother you.
And actually, this is the thing. It's and sort of the cultish element as well of organisations like the
cultish,
Mormons. Cultish, they're a cult. It's
I thought it said something else. I mean, some of them are.
And they're they are looking. That's how cults recruit. Cults recruit people who are vulnerable, and then they seek to sort of over a process brainwash them.
Yeah.
And I know people who have been in cults. I know cult survivors, whether that's a religious cult, but also I know people who were involved in skinhead gangs in the past.
Yeah.
And they were basically over a period of time, they were vulnerable, they were sort of sucked in, and they were gradually brainwashed.
Because I guess it's a part of everybody. We have this deep need to feel connected.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel connected, you are going to go with the first group that shows you some interest.
Especially people with mental health problems or learning difficulties and stuff. These are people who are prime targets for.
Maybe we should do a kind of love group or something. That just sort of go around to people and go, look, we love you. You can hang out with us. You don't have to agree to anything.
Yeah.
I will just really like you guys.
This would be a really good beginning if you wanted to start a cult.
Yeah, exactly. It would go to our heads. But that's another thing with human nature, isn't it? Even if you were somebody who's really self-aware and kind of really switched on, I think if you started to have 100,000 people sort of telling you you were the bee's knees, would it go to your head? Would you start believing it?
Well, it's like the guy who the last emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie.
Yeah.
Is that his name? The Rastafarians believed that he was.
I thought that was
He was the Messiah. No, that's the Mary Celeste. And they believed that he was the Messiah.
Yeah.
But he was
Did he start believing it?
The head of state. Well, no one knows because basically he did a state visit to Jamaica.
Yeah.
which was like obviously like the sort of biggest Rastafarian nation in the world. And he did a state visit to Jamaica, and he had like interviews and stuff. And people were saying to him like, well, you know, what do you think? Are you the Messiah? But he had like he would not answer.
Sounds like the life of Brighton.
Yeah, it does. he would not answer because like I think maybe he wasn't totally sure. Like but also like yeah, like he never really answered that question, and that's kind of what's quite interesting about the whole thing. But yeah, like you know, these hundreds of thousands of people believe the Messiah.
Thing with religion, and if I ever did any stand-up, like I would use this, is you know, like how do we know that all of those Bible stories like are just not misunderstood sarcasm? You know, like with Mary and Joseph, you know, when they go to the, you know, the inn, you know, and the innkeeper goes, "Is she with child?" That makes she's a virgin. You know, is that water? No, mate, it's wine.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something in there.
You know, maybe it all is.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. Just imagine finding that out though, like he was a real prankster.
Yeah.
It's like
just
comedian.
a really sarcastic.
Yeah, a really sarcastic bloke.
It's just like, are you dying? No, I'm coming back to life in 3 days, mate. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. I cured this blind fella the other day. Honestly.
Yeah.
It's vision. Top notch.
Oh, he's not blind anymore.
Yeah.
That'd be an interesting twist, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'd almost love to find something like that out.
Maybe that's what the Da Vinci Code really is.
Is this the right way? I'm sure anybody watching this, you know, probably found loads of flaws in my driving. You're in the wrong lane. So you got to tell me about China. Anyway,
Yeah, China was amazing. I had a really great time. It was strange. So I was living in Beijing. It's the largest city by area in the world.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very full of people. So going from living in Holbury or like market towns in South Devon to going and living.
There's a difference between throwing a bullet and shooting one, isn't it?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
So it was quite intense a lot of the time. I said to people, it was like being trapped in a lift for 2.5 years.
Yeah, see, I'm not sure that
there's
I
also
can
sort
handle
of 23.5 million Chinese people in that lift with you.
Yeah, because like you said earlier on, you know, I was saying that I can't handle queues on Facebook.
Oh yeah.
I'd have loved China. I mean, like
There's no queuing. There's no queuing. It's just pushing.
Yes, maybe that's more me.
Maybe I found it quite difficult.
But then I
got into it. I got to the stage where I started to quite really enjoy giving people a good shove.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what, I am getting on this subway.
The dichotomy, like about me though, is I'm too British to push. You know, so I'm not British enough to queue. I'm too British.
I've got a little bit of German in me, and I always say that the German's in my elbows because I've got German elbows.
So
they're perfectly happy to kind of. To give it a shove, but
taking them down really efficiently as well.
Yeah, some efficient elbowing. Yeah, I mean,
energy wasted.
I tell you, I wanted to go to like a big decathlon store that's like in one of the suburbs of Beijing, and I had to do a subway change, and I got off like my normal line to get onto this other line. I'd been warned that this line I was getting onto was a busy line.
Yeah, and
I stood there on the platform, and I watched as one of the subway cars like turned up, and literally people like I've never seen anything like it, just like crammed into this subway carriage.
Yeah,
there were more people on the platform than could fit in this subway, but you know, everyone gave it a good go.
Yeah,
and I kind of just took one look at it and was like, you know what, I'm going home. I don't
like
really need to go to the decathlon that badly.
Yeah, well, they just push people in, don't they?
Yeah. And it's brutal.
That would really like scare me, I think.
It is quite scary.
Yeah.
Like I was lucky in that the areas I was travelling in most of the time were not that bad.
Yeah.
But like this was the one time I'd been warned this line is incredibly busy, and I got there to the transfer, and I was like, nah, you know, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
This is
as
not
a
my cup of tea.
Westerner, right? Is it like we would perceive China to be, or is it like totally different? You know, say. You know, sort of animal rights, you know, like are often, you know, seen as really bad, and kind of human rights and those kind of things, or is it actually much better than that?
In terms, I mean, so people will talk about the dog eating, But the dog eating is really, really being like done away with.
Yeah.
Like in the cosmopolitan cities, people don't eat dog anymore. You can't just go and buy dog.
Yeah.
Like, I think in some of the rural communities it still happens, but it's kind of gradually, like they are trying to get rid of it.
I mean, it's weird though, okay, because I mean, with that festival they have.
Well, apparently that doesn't happen anymore.
Okay, cool. So, it's, but I mean, what I find weird, and I kind of don't want to be like preachy like about this, right? But obviously, like being a vegetarian, okay, I find it weird that people have a problem with, say, people eating dogs, but they don't have a problem like with people eating like pigs and cows. Like it's a weird line in the sand to draw for me.
Yeah, I
think
can
you've either got
understand
outrage, you know, because we're killing animals and eating them, or you're okay with it. Like it seems a really weird like hierarchy that we have. It's like, yeah, we find that one cute, so he's okay. You know, like those ones aren't so cute. Fuck them.
Yeah,
It's a weird line.
And also,
in the
like
sand.
China, like this is a country that in like 50 years ago there was like one of the worst famines of the 20th century. Like was in China. Like, you know, people would eat anything, and like, you know, some people, they remember that.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. Like,
Actually, have you heard, okay, that people's like genetic makeup apparently can sort of remember things like that. And I was reading a study, and I think it was citing, it was Native Americans, and how there's like an epidemic now with things like diabetes and obesity amongst like Native Americans. And they, this person was saying like it's because of the fact that when they were not young, you know, like in the past, sort of because like food was scarce and it was more something that they had to work for, that, you know, that actually, you know, sort of now it's kind of readily available. They just overindulge like so much.
And that makes sense as well in terms of China, because like when people in restaurants, they order like way too much food, way more food than they're ever going to eat.
So maybe there's some weird sort of like genetic kind of like memory.
If that's true, that's absolutely incredible. Like, I mean, it would make so much sense. I think one thing that, like, and you're saying about human rights as well. Like, I think that's something that I mean, my genuine opinion of it is like, okay, like in China, you need like your identification on you at all times. And a Chinese national might be asked for their ID. And like, a police officer could just come and say like, ID please. And they can do it to Westerners as well. Like, we needed like our visa documents and our passport on us at all times. And this little piece of paper, which was like, to show we were registered with our local police station. And as a non-national, you had to go register with your local police station.
It's almost like being a sex offender.
just
being a tourist,
being white. And like, but also like, and you know, like there were things like, I'm trying to ask, like, but you know, like it wasn't that long ago when they were talking about these kind of things here. You know, like they wanted to bring out mandatory identification cards that people would have to carry on them all the time. And they wanted to, like, you know, there is talk again, like recently, about foreigners having to register, people not born in Britain, they had to like register, like, you know, their address through their workplace and then through their school, didn't they? That was like last year. And so I don't, and this sounds rude, I don't think there's anything that the government do to people in China that our government wouldn't do to us if they could. I mean, you can't criticise the government in public. Like, if you're bad-mouthing the Chinese government in a bar or something, like, you know, someone might overhear and report.
So I do remember sending you like a Facebook message that sort of jokingly like said something about like the government, and I was like, shit. Sorry.
That's fine. But like actually, you know, like Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary, there was talk of stopping people from talking about the government in a bad way in public. So actually, I don't think that anything they do to their people is worse than what our government would do to us if they could.
If they thought they could get away with it,
And the fact is, like, what has made me really grateful for is that we've got these structures in place that have stopped national identity cards, that have stopped Theresa May's gagging law, that have stopped kind of like the foreigners registration, that like you know, like, as much as I don't agree with an undemocratic, unelected House of Lords, like, the Lords have repeatedly.
I was going to say, yeah, they've actually done some great stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And it's weird, yeah, because I remember even, you know, what, sort of like 5 or so years ago, loads of Facebook things, you know, people saying, yeah, kind of, we shouldn't have the House of Lords.
Well, we should have a democratically elected second house, in my opinion, based on proportional representation from the same election or something.
But they have kind of like saved our ass quite a lot, haven't they?
And so, like, I don't. It's sort of, human rights isn't bad in like a day-to-day way, but as much as there are like human rights abuses in China, it's nothing our government wouldn't do to us if they could.
Yeah. Somebody was saying to me that there's little parks where people sort of take down their birds and they kind of hang them up and they all like.
Yeah.
Which sounds really cool, yeah, because obviously I always assumed that they were really cruel to animals, but actually, I mean, that sounds pretty.
Yeah, I mean, like, as well, like, people have a different relationship with animals, and dog ownership as pets is on the rise. So lots of people have like little dogs in Beijing, and they're often like mongrels, like, you know, from all sorts of different breeds, and very ugly dogs generally. But like, they put clothes on them. And we kind of go, oh, that's really weird.
That's to dress them up. It's like, well, she's ugly, but she's got some nice clothes.
Yeah. The Beijing's really cold in the winter.
Yeah.
And actually putting kind of like a silly little t-shirt on a dog is probably like a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, and there are dog shoes, and I have no idea if dog shoes is painful and cruel, or like whether it's actually protecting the dog's feet from the frozen ground, or what the situation there is. But like,
can you
people
imagine,
have
like,
quite
if
the
dogs
relationship
evolve,
there.
like, almost in the same way that we have, you know, where they get kind of so used to clothes and shoes, you know, the dogs, you know, like, it's cruel, like, to not do that.
To not have dogs, yeah.
Okay, can you imagine? Yeah.
That'd be quite crazy.
Yeah.
So, like,
he's outside without his shoes on. Yeah.
Crazy dog.
Someone called the RSPCA.
So, like, more and more people have pets now, and like, yeah, like, lots of sort of generally old men have like a pet bird, but it's not like a parrot or a cockatoo, it's like a sparrow.
Yeah.
And it's like in a little cage. But yeah, then they take the bird like out to the park, and like, yeah, they hang them in trees, and sort of they might be sat there playing like Chinese chess with their mates, and then there's their birds are sat next to them,
yes, that's cool,
singing, and you know, like, it's
tempted to get a bird.
No. Not really. Didn't really cross my mind.
Didn't do it for you.
Crickets as well. People have little pet crickets in these little round wooden cages about this big.
Yeah.
The size of sort of a tennis ball.
That seems more crazy.
It's lucky. So they carry their little wooden cage around with them.
I guess it's lucky for everyone except the cricket.
Yeah, it's not so lucky for the cricket.
Maybe that's kind of like pet ownership, full stop.
It's very strange. So like, yeah, there is this kind of different relationship with animals that's kind of like shifting as well, and like, yeah, more and more people have pet dogs and cats and birds and crickets, and like, that's kind of like more the blending of cultures, really.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, I'm like, there's some very Chinese stuff, but also like, you know, like, we were eating a lot of street food and like very Chinese food. Obviously, like, going out and eating Chinese food a lot. But in terms of, if you don't like Chinese food, you could still like eat well in Beijing, because like, you know, there's sort of like, apparently there's more KFCs in Beijing than in the entire United States of America.
Which is mental, isn't it?
And like, you know, there's like,
do they have like McDonald's and stuff there?
Yeah, they've got McDonald's. McDonald's delivers in Beijing.
Yeah.
And they've got
Is it still a Big Mac, or is it?
Yeah.
You know, one of those one of those half-fertilised eggs.
No, no, I don't. You can't get the century-old eggs in McDonald's, I don't think.
You have that with a Happy Meal.
Yeah. There's like, instead of the fruit sticks, you get a half-fertilised egg.
Awesome.
But like, you know, lots of Mexican restaurants. You know, there's even like a British restaurant we went to occasionally when we were feeling a bit homesick, and like.
Did they kind of get it right, like, or is it like a foreigner's view of like?
Pretty good bangers and mash, I have to say. Pretty good bangers and mash.
Yeah.
Very good lasagna as well. You can't get really more British than a lasagna, can you?
Well, yeah. Or but that in itself's weird, I suppose, because it's Italian originally, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, do they have like Vindaloo, the English restaurant? That's another kind of like batshit crazy thing about people that are like xenophobic. You know, like is they'll, you know, just moan about, I don't know, you know, Indian people or something, you know, but then they'll go and have a
curry, yeah.
It's just, you know, I mean, like, it's just ridiculous, isn't it?
I think like British culture has been so shaped by other cultures.
Well, I guess that, yeah, you know, that's the whole thing. Is kind of, you know, we were saying earlier on, sort of like what is Britishness? Like in a lot of that,
Yeah.
you know, it's a melting pot of loads of other different cultures, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and like as well, like I know that after World War II, like it was people coming over from the West Indies because we needed like manpower.
Yeah.
Like, and that was kind of like an influx. Then, like in the 70s, there was a need in the service industry, so people coming over from India and Pakistan to kind of like work in the service industry, and like and then obviously there was like a sort of like a trade, a skilled labour shortage, sort of like in the last decade that saw people come over from like Poland, especially. And it's like actually like people, and even like a few years ago they were talking about we need more nurses, and there's loads of nurses coming over from Spain.
Yeah.
And it's the way that people from other countries have come and like benefited us in an economic sense, but then we've like adopted elements of their culture.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of Polish culture has really been integrated into Britain, but I mean, it's sort of such a gradual process.
I'll tell you something as well, like what's great about the Polish is that without them, like we wouldn't be going to the gig tonight. Like I said, I lost the tickets, and that Polish fella.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sort of eternally grateful for that. Yeah.
Well, like
keep them in, if just for that.
Yeah. You know, a friend of mine, he jokes about how, like he's a comedian, English comedian, and he jokes about how like, well, it was the Vikings coming over here and like pillaging our sort of like our coastal towns, and it probably made us all a lot better looking. Kind of all that sort of Viking DNA coursing through our veins has probably been a good sort of genetic influence in terms of how aesthetically pleasing British people are.
But I guess it's helped us. We both got sort of like red in our hair, so like does that mean we have like Celtic ancestry?
I don't
That's
really.
what I heard.
I suppose it.
Like red.
It must. I know like Saxon as well.
Yeah.
Like it can be Saxon, it can be like Nordic, it can be Celtic. But you know, like it can also be a spontaneous mutation.
Yeah.
Someone can just be ginger for absolutely no reason.
Yeah. Or it could also be that we don't have a soul.
It could be.
Yeah.
Could be. I know, like as well. Like apparently, every single person in the world who has blue eyes is basically like genetically descended genetically descended from this like one bloke who lived by the Aral Sea like thousands of years ago.
Okay, well I like him.
He was like the first blue-eyed guy, and
he's my favourite.
I guess all the women digged it, and he got about a bit, and now there's blue-eyed people everywhere.
Yeah, I mean I think I got his blue eyes. You know, that was it.
That was it.
Yeah. He had all the fun, the bastard. But you know, that's a good thing, I suppose. Yeah. I'm glad he was a philanderer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm not going to talk about it like too much actually, because obviously, you know, hopefully people are going to listen to this. Like, and I think it's quite a, you know, it's a real sort of controversial thing, and you know, and it's a bone of contention. And I advise people like to look it up, you know, for themselves. But certain cultures have a much higher degree of inbreeding, and it's to do, you know, with people kind of marrying and having children with first cousins.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing I think is out in Israel where the rabbis will do like tests to make sure that they're not from the same.
A friend of mine's Icelandic, and you can get a phone app that like if you like hook up with someone, you kind of like scan each other's phone, it just checks that you're not too closely related for you. It'll like alert you if you're cousins. So obviously it's a country with such a small population.
Yeah. Although sort of imagine, you know, like there's people finding out kind of are they not related and going, actually, I'm out.
It happened in China actually. I was reading.
You're not my cousin.
I'm not interested then. It happened in China a few years ago. I was reading a thing that was about, like, because obviously lots of second children were adopted and abandoned and went to orphanages. And this guy and this woman, they got together and they'd been seeing each other and they decided to get married. And then when they went through the legal process to get married, it turned out they were brother and sister.
Yeah.
And it's like
scary, isn't it?
Yeah, but like,
I love my brother, but there's limits.
But like, actually, like, you know, everyone's got 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, and actually you only have to go back like 500 years or so, and you've got that number is bigger than there were people on the planet at the time.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a certain amount of quite a significant amount of inbreeding, really, in that short space of time.
I wonder kind of like how far back it goes, because isn't it like Queen Victoria wasn't
Prince Albert was her cousin.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was
his first cousin,
was it? I don't know if they were first cousin, but they were cousins. But then, like, isn't the Queen and Prince Philip, aren't they like?
Yeah, well, I've also read.
But all the royal families of Europe are
absolutely, because there's some
related now.
And I think, you know, it's kind of 13 levels are removed or something. But actually, Prince William and is it Kate Middleton? Is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, they're some form of relation, but I think it's very like distant.
It's like George Osborne, you know. George Osborne is like the Queen's 7th cousin or 8th cousin or something, because he's the heir to a barony, and he's like, so obviously like all these barons are all interconnected to the kind of aristocracy as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's bizarre, that whole thing. But yeah, I know like certain cultures obviously were more isolated, and like China as well. China was so isolated for so long to the outside world, and the idea of a Chinese person like having children with a foreigner, like a non-Chinese person, was like unheard of.
Yeah.
And like even like now, some families like are so resistant to it. I mean, I've got friends who you know like are with Chinese women or with Chinese men, and like, you know, there can be a certain amount of friction and what have you. Like even now, it takes acceptance.
Yeah, there's some Muslim communities that are like that, isn't there? Like there's that whole thing. I think it was in Turkey with these kind of honour killings. You know, where there were some people that were with like Westerners and stuff. So the whole thing's a minefield. Yeah.
Well, isn't it like
just masturbate and you're fine?
I can't remember one futuristic novel I read was like this idea that actually there'll come a stage where all the cultures will have like intermingled to such an extent that we're all the same.
Yeah.
Like we're all. The book, I can't remember whether it said that like everyone was grey, because it wanted to not be any existing colour.
Yeah.
Like, so they just said that everyone was grey. But like this idea that like eventually everyone...
Like John Major from Spitting Image, like, do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually everyone will just be mixed race.
Yeah.
Because like those cultural walls will come down and like the crossover. Thing, I don't know whether that's the case in thousands of years' time, who knows?
But I mean, what's weird about all of it, okay, is it honestly like wouldn't bother me at all. And I have this kind of like weird view of it all, where I do just see this thing where it's sort of driving around, it's this strange like flesh suit, that we didn't take any responsibility for it coming into existence. You know, our parents, we didn't choose them, you know, we didn't sort of choose our genes, so we didn't choose where we were born. And it seems so like strange that we get so kind of caught up like on what's on the outside. And actually kind of to some degree, I even feel this a bit like with gender. I think really like if we were more focused on, you know, kind of like this is what I was born into, you know, it's alright. But actually who I am is not kind of identified purely by what is on the outside. And actually I'm something more than that. And I think we almost get so caught up. And I actually think in some respects it's like getting worse. And I'm not saying, you know, that sort of gender identity and stuff isn't real, but like I almost wish that we spent more time not kind of being defined by the flesh suit.
Yeah, not dwelling on it.
No.
Well, I just think like it's this idea that everything's fluid, and like the gender, sexuality, identity are perhaps not a fixed concept that we are like stuck with for our entire lives, and you know, we change. Like there's that saying, isn't it? You can't step into the same river twice.
Yeah.
And I think the same is probably true of people.
Yeah.
Like we are constantly changing. I mean,
in a flux.
I'm just so different in so many ways to who I was sort of like 10 years ago.
But you got to worry about people who haven't changed, because like, okay, well, what about life haven't you like got almost, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about it, we should be constantly evolving, you know, like you find out new things, you meet new people, hopefully you're always kind of like pushing yourself, and that's what's great with you, you know, doing the stand-up, and the same as me with sort of gigs and stuff, you know, it's something that like you're always on the edge of what's comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, like trying a new song, trying a new joke.
They're constantly pushing your own like comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, like I could get up and do stand up, and I could do like, I think I'm in a really nice place at the moment, a challenging place, because I've just come back from doing comedy for like 2 years in China.
Although you were just saying, you liked my mum's car.
Yeah.
A lovely place right now.
Lovely place. Yeah. But I really like kind of like, because I'm at a stage where the jokes I've been doing for 2 years, I don't know what works, and I'm like exploring what works, but also I'm like forced to write new material to replace stuff that I have to drop. Like I found like Brexit material, for example. Like I was having a great time doing Brexit jokes in China, and I guess it was because everyone was like removed from it.
Yeah.
So to be able to turn around and like be like, oh, here's a Brexit joke, and everyone be like, ha 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 ha, it's not affecting us, we're thousands of miles away, or ha ha ha, I'm not even British, or whatever.
Yeah.
But what I'm finding, like, actually, like, I did some Brexit material at Talking Heads the other week, and it was just like, and it was like, whatever people's opinions are, wherever they stand on that kind of like issue, I think everyone's just a little bit sensitive about it.
Yeah, definitely.
And actually, like, people don't want to hear Brexit jokes, and even Trump jokes. Trump jokes are sort of, they're just not funny anymore, are they? Like, when he was the candidate, it was funny.
Because now it's real, isn't it? It's like, we're stuck with it.
I think the most fun I had with a sort of a Trump joke was when I did these jokes, and it was if it was like just after the election, and we'd been doing a few like Trump jokes beforehand, like it was funny. But when he won, it was like, oh. So I did these jokes. They were like jokes as if Clinton had won the election. It was like, oh, these are jokes from an alternative universe, and they were kind of like, because I mean, obviously, Hillary Clinton is not the sort of, she's not a paragon of virtue, is she?
Exactly, she's not the angel that she's made out to be like. And it was also, which I know is like a side issue, you know, but it was ridiculous that it was kind of made like a feminist issue in a way.
Oh, I'm with her, wasn't it? Hashtag I'm with her, yeah.
And it's like, I was having a conversation with somebody, like, and they were kind of, like, almost trying to sort of insinuate that, like, if you weren't behind her, you were somehow sexist or something.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, it's got nothing to do with that, you know. And I, when there was a part of me that was thinking, if she wins, it's almost like a kick in the guts, because kind of what you'd want is you'd want a really amazing, admirable woman to have won.
Well, yeah.
And then you could have said, you know, like, this was a real victory.
Well, it's like with Britain as well. We've had 2 female prime ministers, and both of them have been like figures who have caused a lot of sort of devastation in people's lives.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's like, it's sad.
Yeah. And they've done kind of nothing like for feminism and equality.
No.
Because
well, Thatcher was sort of ardently, I'm not a feminist, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Like,
and they're those real, you know, bitchy kind of iron lady things, and everybody, you know, when you sort of have this conversation, like, and they say, you know, I don't know, like, if a woman's a strong woman, she's a bitch, you know, like, or if a guy's this, but, you know, it may be controversial, women. But sort of like Thatcher was a bitch.
Yeah,
you know,
I've got no argument. It's not controversial, mate.
And I think sort of like, you know, that May is in the same camp. So, yeah. And
there are some phenomenal female politicians.
Absolutely.
About, like, I
who's the Scottish lady that's always killing
Nicola
it?
Sturgeon.
Yeah.
Or do you mean Mahara Black, the sort of young...
I think
the young blonde sort of 21-year-old,
Scottish.
whatever her name is. Yeah, well, both Nicola Sturgeon and Mahara Black are Scottish.
Yeah.
But like, I forgot what I was saying.
Yes.
About like the jokes. So I did these jokes about like, and that went really well. It's kind of like, oh, let's pretend Hillary Clinton won the election for a minute and make fun of that.
Yeah.
And that was quite a fun thing. But like here, like, so like, it's that kind of like creating new material, and it's a really nice and trying stuff out.
Yeah.
And you know, I can go through a phase where I'll do like I'll get a sort of a set that feels very safe, and it can be my, I get a set of go-to jokes that I can okay, these work, I'm comfortable doing these, I can almost do them in my sleep now.
Is it really different, like the comedy here and in China? Like, have you had to like change things, or is it fairly similar?
I think when I went to China, I felt like, oh my goodness, this is really different, because it was like an international audience, and like I was doing a lot of sort of like very cynical British political jokes. But then I like learn
to sort of make a joke about like the regime or something.
Well, you can't.
I know. I remember there was a Jimmy Carr joke, right? That I mean, like if anyone's kind of like made it this far, into the podcast, this is an offensive joke. It's not one of mine. It was Jimmy Carr's, and it was when he was doing. It was like greetings cards and kind of things that you could write on them. And on one of them, like on the front, it was congratulations, it's a girl. And then inside he wrote, better luck next time, love from the Chinese.
Well, I did this thing, and it was pictures of Beijing with Game of Thrones quotes. And one of them was this pregnant woman, a Chinese woman, and it was like, oh, what if I only have girls? But yeah, I think when I went out there, I had to learn to change my style and my content, and it was a real learning curve, but it was a great experience, like meeting kind of people from all around the world, and like seeing like the American sense. I've never been a big fan of American comedy, but I learned to appreciate it and understand it a lot more, and see the sort of intricacies of it that I'd perhaps not really paid attention to so much before.
Was it easier as well, like as a performer, to be somehow sort of like removed, like from the people there and the culture?
Yeah, I think like the audience is mostly expats. There are a certain amount of Chinese people that come to shows. But I think as well, like I was able to use the I'm British as like a vehicle. So like it made the whole process easier, because everything could come back to I'm British. And that in itself is quite funny to a lot of people. So like, and coming back, you should have done that
sort of John Cleese thing, where you kind of went on stage with a handkerchief.
Yeah, I should type. And like coming back, I've realised that actually a lot of the stuff I've learned there is like completely I can apply, and even like jokes that I've just done here for the sake of it, and they've gone really well, and I'm like, oh, I never thought that would translate back to Britain. And I've been surprised, but there is a difference.
I guess it's good that sort of you haven't made like jokes about those like half fertilized eggs. When you're having one of your half fertilized eggs.
And like one thing that actually like audiences in like from all like these sort of all around the world, international audiences in shows in Beijing, and they come up to you afterwards, they sort of slap you on the back, oh, I really like that was really good, and everyone's like, the language people are using, like people are enjoying it and people are telling you they enjoy it. I keep having, and I had this a little bit before I went, but like the other week I was at the Talking Heads, and someone made this comment, and I get this a lot, it's the, oh, your sort of, your joke, your comedy is very smart. I don't think everyone understood it. Oh, I understood it, but I don't think everyone understood it. And actually, like, no one ever said that to me in China. Like these international audiences, like Chinese people, Americans, Australians, like people from all around the world, no one ever came up to me and was sort of like, oh, your jokes are really smart, like almost like you're a bit too smart for this crowd. No one would say that. And no one would kind of like be like, oh no, like, I got it, but I think there were a lot of people who didn't understand. People just sort of
got it, but
it's so like it's really
I'm intelligent, but some of these pricks.
But whereas like I haven't really, like I suppose, there would be nights and there'd be jokes I tell and like not everyone laughs, and that's fine. Like not everyone likes it. Not everyone likes all types of humour, and that's great. That's kind of the joy of comedy. There's something for everyone.
Like some like it.
Some like it, some don't.
Some don't.
That's why there's so many different styles. There's so many different tastes.
So many different positions.
But like, and I'm not joining in with your sex jokes because my mum's probably going to listen to this. So.
Okay, sorry, John's mum.
So
what are you doing later? No, kidding.
So like What was I saying? Just blowing my train of thought. So like,
thinking about your mum.
I feel like I wasn't as divisive in China.
Yeah.
Like, no, okay, not everyone would laugh, but there wasn't this kind of like, oh, I got it. You know, people didn't necessarily walk away feeling like that their intelligence had been rewarded by a smart joke I told.
Yeah.
People just sort of seemed to
I mean,
enjoy for what it was a bit more, which was really nice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because there's some of the places that we've like played. Obviously, some of the open mic nights. Right now, I've even found this like when I've done certain songs that aren't say like crowd pleasers. You know, some of the kind of environs that we've done open mic nights probably don't get some stuff, do they? You know, like, it could be quite like a challenging audience for. You know, because I guess in a way, there's probably like a parallel, you know, with comedy and with music. You know,
Yeah, definitely.
Like where if you want everyone on side, you just do Wonderwall or like you tell a knob gag or something. You know.
Yeah.
And then when you're trying to do something, you know, like a bit more creative or artistic, like either you have to kind of ease people into that, or just kind of like do your thing and accept maybe like other people aren't gonna.
Yeah, I think I believe in like in audience feedback, like so like listen, like as you're performing, kind of like making sure you're listening to the audience responses.
I guess that's where we like started actually, wasn't it? About yeah.
But I think you have to decide like where your line. Like, I mean, some people will like it, some people don't. As long as some people enjoy it, I'm quite happy. Yeah. What I don't want to do is I don't want to stop doing the comedy that I love, the stuff that I find funny.
You're just glad there's smart people in the audience.
It's not even. I don't. It sounds. I feel like that's a really patronising kind of like sense of like, oh, I do comedy for smart people, because like I think some of my jokes are like obscure and niche, and some of them are like, oh well, you know, this is a joke that requires you to know this Latin phrase or something. Yeah. But like, I
think another thing as well is I think that it's almost an indicator of actually whether people are paying attention and listening. And I think some of the open mic nights are not really kind of like geared towards that, and like geared towards kind of like. And I remember once when I did an open mic night in the Soul Cellar, you know, and I'm open to the fact like it could be that just wasn't like a good joke I did, right? But there was a joke that a girl had done that I thought was really funny, like, and I'd been listening to her, and I think she was a nurse and she was doing some stand-up comedy, okay, and then it was sort of like a rhetorical question about sort of men, I think it was, okay, and so I went on like to do my song, you know, like, and I answered the question, and it was almost like a pin drop, and I realised like that no one had really like paid attention to her.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, sort of again, with songs, like if you're like playing something that people like don't know, in certain environments, people like are just not taking it in.
Yeah, I think it's that you know, that desire for familiarity.
Yeah.
And that's quite hard, like sometimes with comedy, because you know it's original material.
Because I guess you don't really have like covers comedy, do you?
No, I was talking about this, like there aren't comedy tribute acts, or if there are, I haven't seen them. Like there aren't cover comedians. In fact, it's kind of like if you steal a joke, it's kind of like a cardinal sin. But I feel like
that would be amazing. It would sort of rip off everyone else's jokes. Well, I told you, it's a tribute act.
It's a tribute act, yeah.
Someone was saying that I should do, who was it? A Tim Minchin stroke Tom York tribute act. You know, call it Tom Minchin.
Yeah.
It's a sort of Radiohead songs done. Or no,
or you'd
like a Tim Minchin song.
You'd do like a Tim Minchin song, and then you'd be like
in a
really
style.
Depressing Radiohead song.
Like canvas bags, or, you know, sort of like really depressed version of it.
I think that would be hilarious. But like, yeah, so like niche. But I think the thing is when someone does something that is your niche, you love it, don't you? Like, if there's something you're really interested in or you're really passionate about, and then someone does a joke about that, you are well into that. And so I did some jokes about like chemistry Oh, it's a joke about astrophysics a while ago, and it was all about this concept of I'm from this place no one's heard of, like Holbury, in China, no one's heard of Holbury. And so I'm constantly, people are, where are you from? Like, I have to use broader and broader terms until eventually I'm like, oh, I'm in the Gould Belt, I'm in the Laniakea supercluster, kind of like bigger and bigger. And the punchline is that the person always then turns around and goes, oh, is that near London?
Yeah.
It's like, I live in London.
So I remember once going out with a German girl, and I swear to God, we had this conversation. I had a gig, and I think it was in Kent, and she was going to get the train there, and then it was half an hour kind of before the gig. I got a phone call from her, and she said, I can't find it. She goes, I've looked up on the A to Z, and I can't find it anywhere. And I was like, well, there are places outside of London. Kent is outside of. She was like, oh. Okay, and it just hadn't sort of dawned on her that it wasn't in London.
I just so kind of was doing this kind of joke. So it was because it was using astrophysics terms, it was talking about the local bubble and the Gould Belt and stuff. Like people who are into astrophysics, their ears then prick up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or if you're doing a joke that's kind of
anything that's niche, I think you always, as you say, if you understand the in-joke, it's fucking amazing.
You feel so validated.
Yeah, have you seen the Hitler ones, the downfall ones, where Hitler's losing it, and people have kind of put
they've
their own
changed the subtitles. I love
There was
them.
one about Morbid Angel, and it was so niche, it was unbelievable. And so because I got it, he was going anyone that doesn't have autism madness on double gatefold vinyl, leave now. It's just such a niche joke that
There was one of when a Firefly getting cancelled.
Yeah.
There was kind of one of my favourite ones because I love Firefly.
Yeah.
It was so it was so niche. But I did one joke and it was it was 3 or 4 different languages, and so it was a joke that used a phrase in French, German, Latin, and I did a Chinese version as well. The idea was you'd get pockets. They'd be a handful of people who understood the French phrase get this joke. A handful of people So basically, it would do that 4 times for French, German, Latin, and Chinese, and then sort of be able to go if we do this for long enough, I will get around to everybody eventually.
Yeah.
And that was always quite fun. And also and you've got one person at the back falling off their chair. And everybody else in silence.
Yeah,
it is quite fun.
Yeah,
kind of a fun
Imagine
moment.
It's addictive, because then you're having a moment with that person, aren't you? Which is great. But actually, kind of
it's not really commercially viable, but it's fun.
But it's one of those things. I think it's kind of. You've made me realise that even though it can be hard in the moment, really, you just got to do your thing and just hope it sticks.
Yeah.
Because if you actually start to sort of bastardise it and think, oh well, actually. I won't play this song yet because I know that, or I won't tell this joke yet because sort of I know that certain people won't get it or something. There's limits to that, I suppose. But at the same time, you just have to do what's in your heart and what you think is right, don't you?
Well, that's kind of why I started. We're going to see Stewart Lee tonight, and actually, I'd never been that into comedy. I really liked Bill. I always really liked Bill Bailey. I loved the musical kind of jokes.
Yeah.
Kind of the songs.
I really like
the
Billy Bragg one.
Yeah, I love the fish and chip shop. I love that.
Your fascist
I
chip
learned that
shop
on the
regime.
ukulele actually.
Oh man,
ages ago.
You have to do that at Open Mic Night.
I will. Maybe
I'll join in as well with you.
I haven't got a ukulele. I left I had a cheapy, crappy one.
And I'll buy you one.
I'll get me a ukulele and
do that,
I'll do fish and chips.
I'll bloody buy you one.
I can't really play and sing at the same time, so you'll have to help me.
I'll play and you sing.
All right, we'll do it. We'll do it the next open mic.
Yeah.
But I was never that into comedy, and just by chance I stumbled across a load of Stewart Lee videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was it was just so my sense of humour.
Yeah, definitely.
I was just sat there with my headphones in on the laptop, howling with laughter.
I really love how the UKIP one though with Paul Nuttall.
Yeah.
Of the UKIPs. That is amazing. And those beaker people coming over here.
Teaching us not to drink with our hands.
Yeah, I love that.
Well,
again, it's quite niche, I suppose, isn't it?
Remember, not all UKIP fans are racist.
Yeah.
I watched it, and then I looked at several people like Andy Zaltzman and Josie Long, and I was just howling with laughter. They were so funny, but it was so unlike any of the sort of Saturday night BBC One comedy I'd seen. People like Malcolm McIntyre, who, as much as he's good at what he does doesn't make me laugh. in the same way that
I
Stewart
guess
Lee.
it's quite like safe, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's and so like
In fact, somebody once said to me, which I think is a bit harsh. They said, "He's the comedian that people that aren't into comedy." Like.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly like he's a variety act comedian, a cabaret comedian, but he's obviously mega rich doing it, and fair play to him.
Yeah, well, he does it well.
As long as he pays his taxes, I don't mind. But like, I watched these particular people, Stewart Lee, Andy Zaltzman, and Josie Long, and I thought, oh, this is hilarious. I love this. And so I was just like, I want to do that. I want to do comedy like that. And I'd been doing like performance poetry and like doing little jokes in between.
Yeah.
And like I was like I'd written like silly little things. And I was like, oh, actually, no, I really want to. And so it was because of that I was like, I gave comedy a go, and got more into comedy, and I found more and more like of these sort of like alternative comedians.
Yeah.
For want of a better phrase, really. And then like started to see like other amateur comedians and sort of like touring professionals and stuff, and started to like think, it came out of wanting to do a particular type of comedy, and do like the kind of comedy I love. And it's like that with music as well. Like, I think I was in a couple of bands, but nothing really. I was in a couple of bands when I was a kid, and they were pretty rubbish. But like the last band I was sort of in, we only had a few practices before like the band broke up. But I didn't really enjoy it. It just wasn't the kind of music I liked. Like it was just like a bit meh. I was just playing bass and kind of going through the motions a little bit. And then I just wanted to.
I actually think I might have taken a wrong turn somewhere.
I don't know. I don't know Brighton at all.
I'm just going to pull off here. Because what I'm going to have to do is, I think in my bag I've got like the sat nav that we like pull over somewhere. Can you like reach into my bag?
Where is it? Yeah.
Here's what everyone sees, like how inept I am.
If I just put in Brighton for now.
Dome. Actually, if we can see what street it is, so I'll put it on maps quickly. This is the best bit.
Stay tuned for more.
Yeah, for more
Getting lost with Mike.
For more shit driving, and here we go, like BMR 1UE. Look it up.
I don't even know how to wear these things.
That's right, if I put it here, then hopefully it'll be out of the way.
Please drive to highlighted route.
Brilliant. Have that in HD. So highlighted route. Right, so according to this, we're actually not that far away. We're only like 10 minutes away.
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. We'll
I'm actually glad like people can see this is not people rehearsed.
I don't think there's any doubt of that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You know. Right.
I've completely forgotten what we were talking about. Talk about something else for 10 minutes.
Comedy in China.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're very talented people from all around the world getting together, like, from all walks of life. And also, I made some really great friends, like, some really lovely people.
Yeah.
And, like, I had, like, because I'm getting married next year, and like, my fiance... My fiance proposed to me in China, so like, we got engaged out there.
That's cool as well. You know, sort of, like taking down the stereotypes. I wonder if I can turn this down.
What about the
third exit to A27?
This is going to be brilliant. We got a third,
a third character.
We got a third guest.
So like.
Take first exit to Brighton Lane.
We
The police are ahead of us as well. They're going to pull us over and go, "What are you doing, you bellends?"
We had like a Beijing leg of my bachelor party.
Yeah.
That my friends out there, like, they were like all guys I'd met through comedy.
Yeah.
Wanted to throw me, and they all dressed up. They all put ginger beard, like fake ginger beards and ginger wigs on.
Yeah.
Continue 0.2 miles, then turn right.
And like, it was really great. I'd only known these people a couple of years, but they soon became like very close friends that, like, you know, we talked about comedy, but we
It
didn't
felt
just talk about
comfortable, like
comedy.
you're totally taking the piss out of your
Well,
appearance.
and we did before I left. Like when people leave, they do like a roast. Like people leave, so we did this roast night for me, like a couple of weeks before I left.
Amazing.
And just kind of like brutally ripped the shit out of me, to be honest with you. Like,
Give me some examples.
so.
I need real world examples.
My friend Scott said that the first time he saw me, I was wearing the kind of jumper that made me look like the kind of person you would buy speed off of in a pub toilet. There's a guy who said that I look like someone.
On that score, have you got any?
No, afraid not.
Bollocks.
There's a guy who said I look like someone you might buy a used PlayStation 2 from. I look like Robert Baratheon on Hunger Strike. Lots of like, someone said that, you know how there were those t-shirts that said, this is what a feminist looks like?
Yeah.
I should get a t-shirt that says, this is what a feminist looks like. And like all these kind of like quite brutal jokes about me and Liz, and because Liz is like a feminist and I'm like a hippie. He said it was like this great love story, like when Harry met Sally, but it was when hairy legs met smelly. And like these kind of like, and I filmed it, and like, one of my like really close friends out there, he like read out a poem about how we're like unlikely friends.
Yeah.
That was kind of like really sweet but very funny as well, and like it was a really nice. Like I'm quite self-deprecating in my comedy anyway. I like make lots of jokes about myself, because like I don't want to make victims of other people.
Yeah, I think I sort of do that a lot actually. Yeah, most of my humour, I think, you know, is like self-deprecating.
Yeah.
In fact, kind of the other day, did you see on Facebook like the joke that I like put about the really hot girl at the gym, you know, the kind of tough, you know. I mean, it was a true, you know, it's a true thing. Like I've kind of noticed her a few times there, and you know, we've often smiled at each other. Like, and I just kind of looked up and she was there, kind of smiling at me. And it was one of these moments out of some kind of film or something, you know, where everything that could have gone wrong, like went wrong in that moment. You know, I dropped it, I bent down like I had to pick up the bar, and then like my bag fell off my shoulders and all this. You know, but I mean, it was funny, and I got kind of like a couple of messages out from people, you know, saying, "So don't be so hard on yourself." But like, yeah, you know, like it's clearly a joke.
But it's fun, isn't it? Like, and I think like actually like to do self-deprecating humour from a good place is really like a nice thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
Because like there was once upon a time where I wouldn't have been able to do that. Like I didn't have the confidence, like especially as like a teenager or whatever. I wouldn't have had the confidence to sort of like take the piss out of myself in that way.
Yeah, because I think that I used to, but almost to kind of combat. So you know, like it would stop other people kind of sort of like being able to do it. So I would get in there first, and I think kind of at first it was a defense mechanism, whereas now, you know, I just find it funny.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like, you know, if somebody zings me, like I do find it hilarious. I mean, I remember again, when I worked at the secondary school, like, and this kid said to me, he goes, "You're so far in the closet, sir, you're in Narnia." Which I thought was an amazing insult.
It is brilliant. But it's like, I like that, like with the roasts and stuff, a lot of them were like, you know, I was like wiping tears of laughter away. I was in absolute hysterics. Like some of them were brilliant, and like
the feminist.
And like like one of them was like talking about how like, I like cricket, and they were saying, oh, like cricket is, you know, it's long, you know, it's boring, not everyone understands it. Oh wait, that's his comedy.
And it's intercourse.
Yeah, it's intercourse, yeah. And
sorry, Mrs. Matthews.
so like it's kind of like, it is a lot of fun, like that kind of like those kind of zings and stuff. Like I do like that.
Were there any that you thought, all right?
No, not about me.
Because I watched some of those American ones and they're fucking harsh. I mean, you know, and again, I should probably sort of prefix this with an apology. It was the one of Rob Lowe. Like, do you know who he is?
Yeah.
Like the 80s. And he's in like Wayne's World and stuff. Okay, well, he was done, wasn't he? Because like he had sex with an underage girl. Like I think he made a sex tape and he thought she was 18, no, but she was only 16.
Okay.
And then he sort of managed, you know, to kind of claw back his career, and he's still, you know, he's still working now. and then the host, I can't. What's the host name? Like David Spade. He was the sort of MC for the night, and he said, but of course Rob Lowe is the comeback kid. Oh no, sorry, that should read, he's come on the back of a kid.
My goodness.
And it's just like, bloody hell, that's brutal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like, I think like actually like those kind of things are really funny because it's like, yeah, this is offensive, but I've given you permission to laugh at this offensive thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, and like, so often when I get up on stage, like, I do often start with jokes about my appearance.
Yeah.
Like jokes about like, obviously having a beard or having long hair or kind of like whatever, because it's kind of like saying, you know, I'm telling people it's okay to laugh at me.
Yeah.
And you know, this is
a license to bully.
Yeah, it's kind of
Go
like,
ahead.
Yeah, like get involved.
Get involved.
Like it's a kind of, and also, but I think it also sets the standard. It's saying like, I am the victim of my own comedy. Like people make jokes about like, you know, disabled people, and I don't think that's nice, to be honest with you. And like, there was a guy who came to China who was a Canadian comedian who like he was on a like world tour or whatever, and he did like a Beijing leg, and he was like, he got in a lot of trouble for making a joke about a disabled child.
Yeah.
In Canada, and he was taken like to court over it and had to like pay compensation and stuff.
Because Canada is somewhere where now kind of like free speech, and again, you know, we sort of go back to kind of should people have the right and stuff, but actually there's loads of things now that you can actually get into serious trouble for saying.
I would say in Canada's a country, it's not about free speech. It's not that there's restrictions on free speech. I would say there's restrictions on hate speech.
Yeah.
And so like they were deemed that what he was saying was hateful.
Yeah.
And that this child deserved protection.
Yeah.
From the hateful words.
Yeah, because it's hard to kind of argue against that, really.
Yeah. So like, and like I don't want to do comedy that is like hateful and like where the victim is vulnerable people. So like that's why I do a lot of political jokes, because the victim of political jokes are powerful people. And like if you're like, I mean, Gary Barlow, like I will do jokes about Gary Barlow because like I really don't like him. I think that when you do charity work but you avoid tax, you're a fraud. Yeah. Like it's like David Beckham as well. I feel like really able to lambast him, like if I wanted to, because he you know, all this stuff about like him not getting a knighthood, but he didn't get a knighthood because he's a tax avoider. Yeah. Like, and actually, plus you know that he wouldn't understand it anyway, so it's okay. It's fine. Yeah. Who cares what? I don't care what charity work you do. If you're a tax avoider, it don't make a difference. Like, so I think making jokes about powerful people is okay because they're powerful people. Making jokes about the powerless, that's not nice. You're punching down, and it's almost like an act of cowardness. Yeah. Like picking on the little kids. Like, that's not a brave, strong thing to do. No. That's the actions of a weak person. Yeah. But like as
hence
well, like,
why I'm still a bully in the schoolyard. No.
So I make jokes about myself because I'm saying that like it's like saying this is not going to be comedy that makes jokes about weak people. Yeah. Like about vulnerable people. I don't want to use the word weak, but this isn't mock the weak.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Because it's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess everyone has like a different line, don't they? Yeah, so I mean, kind of, it'd be interesting to know kind of where your line would be. So,
well, in terms of what I would laugh at,
or
what I would
make
do.
a joke about it. So, say like with Gary Barlow, like how far would you go with him?
But like, I have made jokes of the fact that, like, maybe there wouldn't be so many children in need if Gary Barlow paid his taxes. Like when he was on Children in Need, like I would make fun of the fact that this sort of like duplicity of doing like high-profile charity work but not paying tax.
Yeah, because also
I wouldn't turn around and be like, oh, Gary Barlow's, I don't know, if he got like, it was in a horrible accident and lost the use. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because what was weird about that is Jimmy Carr, like he got slated for it, didn't he? Okay.
But Gary Barlow kind of like almost got.
He was alright with it, wasn't he? He was like,
no one cared. National treasure.
No, is it? Oh, it's disabled. Is it like loading only?
Loading only.
I reckon we can park it. You know.
I reckon it says loading only.
Yeah, but it's a certain point of the day, I reckon.
Okay. So I think that like, But if he lost the use of his legs, the only way I'd ever make a joke about that would be in light of he's a tax avoider. I would never make a joke in light of he's lost. The punchline would be...
Wouldn't have a leg to stand on, would he, to be honest?
Woo.
Hey.
The punchline would be he's a tax avoider. The punchline wouldn't be he's lost the use of his legs.
Yeah.
We've literally parked on the flag.
I know, exactly.
On the sat nav.
That's kind of why I thought it would be like
satisfying.
A good place to park. And also, like the other good thing is, like, if you get a ticket, you know, it's my mum's car, so
who cares?
Exactly, she can pay it. I'm only kidding, Mum. Obviously, I'll pay it.
We should check though.
We should probably wrap it up, should we?
Yeah.
And we're gonna go watch Stewart Lee.
Cool.
Player. Thanks for listening and/or watching. Have you got any last words?
No.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye. Cheers, Mike.